The courtroom was silent, so silent that even the hum of the ceiling fan was a shout. Meri stood frozen, her hands shaking slightly, as the judge raised a thin white envelope. Contained in that envelope was the truth that nobody wanted to acknowledge, a DNA test that would rip apart secrets long hidden, finally laying bare who this mysterious son truly belonged to. Reading the results, it seemed as if a breath was caught in every set of lungs. Not a soul, not even Kody, was able to muster up a voice. The trial now in its third week, the air in the courtroom was thick with tension, like a fog. There were cameras in the back of the courtroom, their lights winking like sons and daughters watching with rapt attention. Meri was seated in the plaintiff's box, her eyes locked on the shiny floor. Where was the calm and composed woman she used to be? That person was replaced by a toughened version of herself, a version that couldn't wait to rip all those lies to shreds. Across from her, Kody toyed with his tie, his jaw locked in a vice. Robyn tried to whisper in his ear, but he wouldn't even glance in her direction. Every time their eyes almost met, she jerked back. She knew deep down that Meri wasn't bluffing. Most of the courtroom thought this trial was about property, maybe money. But Meri wasn't in pursuit of tangible things. She was in pursuit of truth, a truth hidden behind DNA trickery and years of denial. The judge cleared his throat. "Mrs. Brown," he said, his eyes locked firmly on Meri, "your lawyer has brought a claim that has the potential of completely reversing this trial. Are you absolutely certain you want to continue with this trial, Mrs. Brown?" Meri's voice did not tremble. "Yes, Your Honor, I've waited long enough." A murmur ran through the courtroom like thunder in the distance. Even Christine and Janelle, seated silently behind the bar, barely glanced at each other in surprise. They'd known rumors, yes, but never like this. Then, a young man appeared in the room. He couldn't possibly be over 22. He was nervous and tentative, yet very identifiable, with a marked likeness to Kody in his cheekbones and hair, which was a rich amber brown that left Christine breathless. His feet echoed on the floor as he moved. Meri did not look away. The judge frowned. "Identify yourself." "My name is Jacob," the young man introduced himself, cracking his voice just enough to make it sound human. "I believe Kody Brown is my father." Gasps echoed in the room. Robyn grasped Kody's arm. Kody stood fixed, his mouth open, but no sound came out. This was a moment that Kody, a man accustomed to directing every story, every public occasion, couldn't control. Secrets, of course, have their own breaking points, and Meri had merely pulled the first thread. Meri's lawyer, Eleanor, a composed woman with a calm, sharp presence, stood up and showed a manila envelope. "Your Honor, we have submitted comparative DNA analysis between Mr. Brown, Jacob, and Mrs. Robyn Brown." Robyn's eyes widened in surprise. "What?" "You heard me," said Eleanor calmly. "This has nothing to do with property." Kody slammed his palm onto the table. "Actually, it has everything to do with it," Eleanor retorted. "The trust you set up to shield your assets has Jacob as a dependent beneficiary, and that, for starters, is just the tip of the iceberg. Sometimes the truth doesn't knock. Sometimes it storms in, unannounced, and changes everything." The judge cleared his throat. "Mrs. Brown," he said, his eyes locked firmly on Meri, "your lawyer has brought a claim that has the potential of completely reversing this trial. Are you absolutely certain you want to continue with this trial, Mrs. Brown?" Meri's voice did not tremble. "Yes, Your Honor, I've waited long enough." A murmur ran through the courtroom like thunder in the distance. Even Christine and Janelle, seated silently behind the bar, barely glanced at each other in surprise. They'd known rumors, yes, but never like this. Then, a young man appeared in the room. He couldn't possibly be over 22. He was nervous and tentative, yet very identifiable, with a marked likeness to Kody in his cheekbones and hair, which was a rich amber brown that left Christine breathless. His feet echoed on the floor as he moved. Meri did not look away. The judge frowned. "Identify yourself." "My name is Jacob," the young man introduced himself, cracking his voice just enough to make it sound human. "I believe Kody Brown is my father." Gasps echoed in the room. Robyn grasped Kody's arm. Kody stood fixed, his mouth open, but no sound came out. This was a moment that Kody, a man accustomed to directing every story, every public occasion, couldn't control. Secrets, of course, have their own breaking points, and Meri had merely pulled the first thread. Meri's lawyer, Eleanor, a composed woman with a calm, sharp presence, stood up and showed a manila envelope. "Your Honor, we have submitted comparative DNA analysis between Mr. Brown, Jacob, and Mrs. Robyn Brown." Robyn's eyes widened in surprise. "What?" "You heard me," said Eleanor calmly. "This has nothing to do with property." Kody slammed his palm onto the table. "Actually, it has everything to do with it," Eleanor retorted. "The trust you set up to shield your assets has Jacob as a dependent beneficiary, and that, for starters, is just the tip of the iceberg. Sometimes the truth doesn't knock. Sometimes it storms in, unannounced, and changes everything. The truth wasn't just entering that courtroom. It stormed in, and it was clear that it wasn't going to exit quietly. The judge nodded slowly. "Proceed." A picture was placed on the evidence table by Eleanor. The picture showed a young Jacob with a female that no one knew. "Jacob's mother has been dead for 5 years," Eleanor said gently. "However, before her death, she revealed to him that Kody Brown is his real father." Robyn squirmed in her seat, her expression a picture of displeasure. "That's ridiculous. Anyone could say that." Meri spoke up.
Well, then let's see what DNA has to say. This was a moment of truth for her. There was a long silence in the courtroom, a heavy, pregnant silence that seemed to vibrate with foreboding. Even the judge looked nervous, glancing uncertainly at the bailiff as if wondering if this was all really happening. Then, a silence was broken by a statement from Eleanor. Your Honor, I also have a secondary finding to report. In our DNA test, we cross-referenced it with a test performed a long while back with the authorization of Robyn Brown. That data, which was filed in the state of Nevada, was tampered with. Again, the courtroom erupted. Robyn got up. You can't prove that. Oh, we already did, Eleanor calmly but sharply cut through the noise. The lab technician, your former associate, Miss Dana Heller, has confessed in a sworn deposition that she changed your test results on your behalf. Robyn's face went ashen. Paperwork, which she used to rely upon, would now be the instrument of her downfall. The judge gestured for order. Enough. Go on, Miss Hart. Yes, this is... She nodded as she unfolded the final page. This is the official DNA report. Kody Brown and Jacob Brown have a 99.97% chance of a biological relationship. Kody's head went down into his hands. No, that can't be true, Robyn whispered, shuddering in fear. But it wasn't over yet. Eleanor let out a deep breath. There's more. Meri's eyes shone. Tell them, Meri urged. We also searched Jacob's DNA for Meri Brown, Eleanor added, and it shows a partial maternal match. The courtroom fell silent, with camera battery hum at deafening background noise. Jacob was not only a biological son to Kody Brown, but a genetic relation to Meri Brown as well, through a 2003 clinic procedure where surrogacy manipulation and embryo misrepresentation occurred. In that moment, the courtroom would not feel like a place of justice, a release of all those hidden secrets all at once. You're lying. This is all a setup. Robyn collapsed into her chair. Meri stood up slowly, calmly but furiously. No, Robyn, that was a lie. 20 years of my life you let me think our embryo was lost. The clinic messed up, but now we know what really happened. You stole it. The judge blinked in surprise. You're claiming that she carried my child, he asked. Meri's voice was calm, utterly steady. Yes, and you pretended it was yours. The air was removed from the room. Christine's hand went to her mouth. Janelle began silently crying in the back row. Jacob's voice shook. You mean, I'm your son? Meri nodded, letting the tears flow. Yes, you always were. And just like that, it all fell apart for the story of the Browns, because blood just doesn't lie. The judge leaned back in surprise. This, she said, changes everything. That's not true, Kody shouted, turning to face her. But then he said something that couldn't be recorded, his face ashen, almost gray. Robyn shook her head, repeating, They can't do this to me. They can't. It's true then, she said, closing the folder, as the weight of truth settled over her. Your Honor, we would like a temporary halt in all transactions related to assets in the Brown Family Trust until this matter has been reviewed in its entirety. Fraud, identity theft, and perjury are now part of this record, Eleanor declared. The judge nodded slowly, taking it all in. Meanwhile, cameramen were already firing questions off to their federal correspondents around the country. Meri looked down at Jacob, her son, and whispered, I'm so sorry. Kody finally looked up. His eyes, which were full of pride a moment ago, were now empty. You set me up, he stated. No, Kody, Meri said softly, but with a definite strength. You condemned yourself from the instant you chose to lie rather than love. The truth never breaks families. Secrets do. In front of the court, the sun was setting behind the scarlet hills of Flagstaff. Paparazzi were shouting questions, their flashes exploding like firecrackers as each of the Browns left in turn. Robyn flatly avoided the lenses. Kody slid silently away, shoulders rolled up against the world. Meri stood on the courthouse steps with Jacob's hand in hers, and for the first time in years, she no longer felt broken. She felt free. But meanwhile, back in Lauren's world, the wheels were turning. Motions to reopen all of Robyn and Kody's financial filings were already in motion. Because of course, when DNA has a voice, there's no spinning back. And this, you see, was merely the starting gun. The picture fades as the voice of the narrator becomes a whisper. What's going to happen next will do more than tear down reputations. It will recreate everything they thought they knew about family. The day of the trial, the steps of the courthouse were crouched and rise. Camera lenses fogged in the early morning chill, and microphone masts clashed as photographers pushed for a better spot. The news had spread nationally overnight. Meri Brown spills secret son. DNA scandal rocks sister wives. Meri came in softly, her coat wrapped tightly around her, Jacob by her side. He was lost, still pale from the night before. Do we have to go back in there? He asked softly. Yes, sweetheart, because if we stop now, they win again. She squeezed his hand. Inside, chaos reigned like a hornet's nest. Robyn was rigid, her eyes bloodshot, her hair pulled back too tightly, her lawyer rushing secrets in her ear. Kody just looked lost, the weight of all those headlines bearing down on him. This was the first time in a long time that he wasn't the king of the Brown Empire. Now he was its downfall. Now we will continue with our hearings, announced the judge, as he ended the courtroom. A chill ran through the courtroom as he spoke. Because of yesterday's events, this courtroom will concentrate on charges of fraud and identity deception. Your Honor, we plan to start our case by putting our first witness, Nurse Clara Jennings of Desert Valley Fertility Clinic, on the stand, said Eleanor, rising calmly in her place. The bailiff opened a door, and a woman in scrubs nervously entered. Now she appeared to be an older woman, maybe in her mid-50s, with shaking hands as she was sworn in. Mrs. Jennings, do you remember a patient named Meri Brown? Asked Eleanor as she drew close to her. Clara nodded slowly. Yes. She came to us in 2003 for embryo transfers. And do you remember Mrs. Robyn Brown? Asked Eleanor. A pause. Yes, but not as a patient. She was listed as a support visitor. Robyn's eyes narrowed. She was handed a clipboard by Eleanor. Can you verify this handwriting, Mrs. Jennings? No. That's Squint. That Squint is Robyn's style, but it indicates that she approved of an emergency substitution transfer. That never was supposed to take place. Explain, said the judge, leaning forward. Embryos were falsely labeled, Clara whispered, her voice shaking. Someone matched the patient names with the wrong patients. At first, it seemed like a professional operation, but then I saw that Mrs. Brown's embryo was transferred to the wrong person. The courtroom seemed to chill, as if all the air was sucked out of it with the weight of truth. And the recipient? Eleanor moved closer, her demeanor calm but determined. Clara paused, her eyes started towards Robyn. It was her.
This other picture, she said, showing him a different image. The funds from Aurora Holdings were sent 3 different times. The first transmission went to a private bank in Boise, then to an escrow account in Nevada, and finally to a savings account that belonged to Kody Brown. Kody's jaw clenched. That was for family investments, he mumbled. Family investments or your new life with Robyn. There was a bite in Meri's voice that cut through the tension. You used that money to buy her house, didn't you? Kody stayed silent. Exhibit 32. The down payment for this other house in Flagstaff came from this Aurora Holdings account. And look, the signor of this purchase order is no less than Robyn Brown, power of attorney for this Brown family trust. The judge's eyes widened in surprise. You used a power of attorney. Was it notarized? A faint, near-gloomy smile appeared on Eleanor's lips. It's even better than that, Your Honor. The notary seal itself never existed. This notary, Miss Dana Healer, lost her license 5 years ago, which means she wasn't licensed when this was done. Robyn turned chalk white, as if he felt the walls were closing in on him. Even silence spoke volumes. Christine leaned in towards Janelle. That's why they wanted the changes in the trust. They were laundering their money through property. And we paid for it, Janelle nodded, her eyes glistening with dew. The judge folded his hands. Mrs. Brown, did you or your husband knowingly make any false financial statements? A quiver ran through Robyn's lip. I didn't know. I signed where he asked me to. Kody turned on her, angry. Blame you? You're the one who was working with the paperwork. You were the one who wanted the control. You both wanted control. You thought you could rewrite the truth, just in ink. Meri's voice rang out, defiant. But ink washes out. The truth doesn't. The whole room went rigid. Your Honor, from the audit report of our side, there are also 2 wire transfers in 2019, one of which went to a Cayman Island account, and another to a domestic trust in Utah named RJ Trust Holdings, and the beneficiary of which is Aurora Brown. My daughter? Robyn gasped. Yes, the account was opened in her name with your signature. Over $600,000 has not been accounted for. That money was for her future, Kody whispered back defensively. The glare of the judge sliced through him. That's stolen money, Mr. Brown. Money can erect walls, but it can't plant evidence. Eventually, paper trails always lead back home. Your Honor, we would like a freeze on all Brown family assets and a seizure of the records for Aurora Holdings LLC pending investigation, requested Eleanor, turning to the bench. The judge nodded. Granted. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Robyn collapsed into a sob. You're ruining us, she wailed. No, Robyn, you ruined yourself. The day you lied about my child was the day you sealed this, Meri asserted, her tall frame upright, her voice calm but decidedly uncompromising. You think you can just waltz? You wanted to destroy me. You planned this. Kody's voice rose, tinged with desperation. No, Kody, you ruined yourself when you let greed outweigh family, Meri said. Her eyes held a steady gaze. He beat his fists on the table, his voice cracking. I did everything for all of you. I tried to keep this family together. And now look around. There's nothing left to keep, Meri said without flinching. In that instant, Kody Brown finally broke, not in rage, but under the weight of a truth nobody believed him anymore. Mr. and Mrs. Brown, this matter will now be investigated criminally. The charges of financial fraud will be taken to federal court. Effective immediately, you are not allowed to move, withdraw, or liquidate any family funds. Robyn sobbed. Kody stood frozen. Meri's expression was inscrutable, her eyes leveled. Does this mean it's finally over? Jacob asked his mother as the session came to a close. Not yet. Meri slowly shook her head. Truth isn't finished when you find it. Truth is finished when you live with it. Out in front, the courtroom steps were buzzing with media, flashes popping like fireflies. Meri did not stop for interviews. Christine and Janelle were right behind her. Now, as a group, these 3 women who'd been divided by love, lies, and loyalty walked by the noise, beyond the chaos, into the waning daylight. This was a moment when, for the first time in years, they were all brought together by something much bigger than themselves: survival. Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's a silent march of women who no longer wait to be believed. The camera zoomed in on the waving courthouse flag as it flapped in the desert wind. The narrator's voice became lower, heavier. "Why did you do it? You're a doctor." The secret of Aurora Holdings was now out, but as the investigation delved into their accounts, a final, recurring name kept popping up, that of a signature hidden deep in the trust documents. It wasn't Kody's. It wasn't Robyn's. It belonged to a person nobody would have seen it coming. The courtroom fell silent once more, but this silence felt different, heavy, almost holy. Nobody knew what was about to happen, but they knew it was going to be significant. This marked a turning point, as investigators from Nevada arrived, with only a solitary blue folder that was of a type which would decide the fate of all people in that room. Meri sat upright, her hands folded demurely in her lap, prepared. Jacob and Maya sat behind her, silent, rigid, their eyes fixed on every word, every gesture. There were also Christine and Janelle, standing together, side by side, women who'd been holding back their truth for all these years, unwilling to look away. Robyn was seated, ashen-faced, eyes puffed shut, with a wadded tissue she'd yet to use. Kody was broken, his eyes fixed on the wall as though reliving all the decisions that had led him to this point. The bailiff opened the courtroom door. "Court is back in session." The judge adjusted his glasses, his voice calm. "Miss Hart, I believe you found some further financial evidence?" "Yes, Your Honor." A second signature hidden in the files of Aurora Holdings, not Kody, not Robyn, but a third individual with a direct connection to the wire transfer conclusion. Kody stiffened. "What are you talking about?" "Click," said Eleanor, pressing a button on her remote. A zoomed-in document filled the screen projected onto the walls of the courtroom. Under the bright lights of the courtroom, a sigline shimmered brightly on screen. Meri C. Brown. Gasps echoed through the gallery. Meri stood frozen. "Impossible," she said. Eleanor's voice was calm, precise. "Initially, we thought it was forgery. Forensic analysis showed that ink pressure, writing patterns, and date timestamps matched those of your ID submission in the 2019 property meeting." You were in on this." Kody's eyes went wide. Meri shook her head vigorously. "No, I never signed that." Sometimes truth doesn't come as an enemy, but as a mirror, reflecting back something you never meant to show. The judge furrowed her brow. "Miss Hart, could this be identity fraud?" "That's what we suspected," responded Eleanor. "What we found, though, when reviewing the original digital login for access to the document portal, was that it came from Robyn Brown's IP address, with Meri's scanned ID." Robyn's head jerked up, shock and fear in her eyes. "No, that's not true," she protested. Robyn utilized the driver's license scan of Meri's from her 2018 insurance plan renewal. "That's how a company named Aurora Holdings obtained access to the Brown trust accounts," said Eleanor's voice. You used..." Meri's voice cracked. By the third week of trial, Flagstaff seemed like a small, compact town, as if every corner knew the secrets of the Browns. Camera crews set up camp outside of the courtroom. Overnight talk shows ran replays of Meri's shaking confession and Robyn's shocked breakdown. In the courtroom, there was a different atmosphere, as if the air was thick with heaviness. The prison guards, too, were reluctant to make eye contact with anyone. This was expected to be the day when the second DNA sample would be disclosed. Meri sat in silence, her hands entwined, her eyes straight ahead. She hadn't spoken to Kody since their last session. Back in her corner of the courtroom, Jacob no longer attempted to conceal himself, and there was no escaping their likeness. This, as it was reported in media, was the mirror that broke the Brown myth. Robyn arrived late, her sunglasses shading her puffy eyes. She wouldn't look at anyone, not even Kody. He in turn was a ghost, his face pale, his beard long, as if he'd been transported back in time, robbed of all youth. The truth that annihilates you from the outside corrodes from the inside, leaving guilt as the sole surviving element. The judge cleared his throat. "We're calling back to examine the secondary forensic report that was requested by plaintiff Eleanor Rose. Your Honor, this morning we received the official DNA audit from the state lab, confirming both embryo data and the biological matches. We also received a digital file." He paused, glancing momentarily at Meri. "Play it." Meri nodded. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the projection screen flickered to life. A date and time appeared on screen. Desert Valley Fertility Clinic, March 3rd, 2003. The grainy security tape revealed a corridor. A nurse appeared in the corridor. Then, unmistakably, Robyn appeared, younger, with her hair back and a clipboard in her hand. She went into a restricted lab. 10 seconds later, a man followed her. "I've never interfered in your business, and This video evidence was obtained from a backup drive. This proves Robyn's illegal entry into the cryo-storage facility on the night preceding Meri's planned embryo transfer. The lawyer for Robyn leaped up from his seat. "Objection! We don't know what she was doing in there." "Overruled. Continue the playback." The judge interrupted him firmly.
On screen, it was evident that Robyn was signing a document. The camera position allowed her to sign what was known as exchange. Meri turned deathly white. You swapped me. Jacob's eyes flicked between them in understanding. Robyn covers her mouth, shuddering. I didn't want it to happen like this. Kody said it was only temporary. The edge between confession and collapse was razor thin, and Robyn just crossed it. The judge looked on in utter disbelief. Mrs. Brown, are you admitting to falsifying medical records? I was told it was a clinic correction, she choked. I thought I was helping. Kody slapped his fists on the table, slamming his frustration and hopelessness into the room. Don't say another word. But it was too late. Eleanor stood calmly. Your Honor, we would like this confession to be recorded. Further analysis showed that trace evidence of Meri's original vial of her embryo was present in Robyn's cryobatch, which indicates genetic manipulation. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. She really did it. She took Meri's child, Christine whispered to Janelle. Tears finally came to Meri. Not soft ones, but raw ones. So many years of wounds were being released all at once. You've let me plant a tree of hope for 2 decades, and then you went around it with your own eyes and said I couldn't bear children, so you've constructed your life upon a lie. There was no way for Robyn to lift her head. I loved him like my own, she spoke barely above a whisper. He was my own, Meri retorted, her voice cutting, absolute. The judge leaned forward. With this evidence, I hereby make an order for a comprehensive investigation of fraudulent birth and custody documents. Mrs. Robyn Brown, you are hereby ordered to surrender your passport. Camera flashes erupted from among the onlookers. Kody attempted to speak, but security narrowed in on him. To lose control means to lose reason, and in chaos, all voices are reduced to hysteria. You're destroying everything we built. Kody turned to Meri, his eyes blazing. She looked back calmly. You already did. I'm just showing everyone the ruins. Well, I suppose I must approach that bench. Your Honor, and this is a final exhibit. A recent DNA test done among Kody